The Bible says, "Fill your hungry soul with what's good." When we eat, we share, we grow. Every meal is a chance to be fed and to feed someone else. Life is like cooking. When it works, it doesn't matter if the process is fancy or simple. Good food and a life well lived comes down to how much heart you put in. Welcome back. This week we are making kind of a fancy recipe. We'll be making crepes with champagne sauce. And this is a recipe that has become a favorite of mine and my husband's. And the history behind it is kind of interesting. We were out in San Francisco and we had done some shopping, and I had done some shoe shopping, and we were looking for a little place just to grab a bite to eat. And we ended up in the Mission area of San Francisco. And if you've been there, you know how awesome the Mission is. And we came upon this little crepe shop, and they had all kinds of different crepes. You could get anything that you wanted on. But we got the crepes that I'm gonna be making today. We got them and they were just so gorgeous, and it had mushrooms and champagne sauce, and we just absolutely fell in love. So immediately when I got home, I was like, I have to recreate this. And so this is my version of the crepes that we had in the Mission in San Francisco a few years ago. So let's get started making crepes with champagne sauce. So if you don't know, crepes are French style, really thin pancakes. And so the first thing that we're gonna be doing is making the really thin batter, because they need to spread really easily when you put them on the hot pan. So we start with all-purpose flour, and then add 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And we're just gonna give this a little bit of a mix to combine and also to aerate the flour just a little bit. Now to this, we want to add our wet ingredients. So we're going to start with 2 eggs, then whole milk, water, and our melted butter. And unlike the pancakes that we made last week, where a little lumps are okay left in the batter, this time we want the batter completely smooth. So no lumps, all combined, all mixed together. So you want to make sure that the batter is nice and thin, right? We want it thin, we want it smooth, and we don't want any lumps. And speaking of thin, that's the idea that I wanted to talk to you about today. There is a phrase that I have come across before, and I can't remember exactly where I heard it because it's been a little while, but it talks about the idea of thin places. And thin places refers to a space when you know an area in your life, a place that you have visited where you just feel closer to spirit, closer to God. So it can be anything. It can be maybe a little place in the mountains, or if you're sitting by the beach, or it can be a little bit of a tea shop, or like for me and my husband, when we were in the Mission in San Francisco, that kind of became a thin place. It was a place that we got inspired to dream and inspired to create, and a little bit closer to God's ideas instead of our own ideas. And I love that. So when you're making these or having them with your family, or you're just watching this video just for the fun of it, be thinking about the thin spaces in your life and how you can add more of those. Are there places that you go where you just take a deep breath and can relax? Because that is a thin place where your heart is open and you're free to dream and create, and that's such a lovely idea. Find those thin places in your life. I know that I always am reaching out for those and finding those in my life, and just giving that to yourself, just giving you that moment of that closeness and that little bit of, this is where I'm supposed to be. And that's such a beautiful thing, a beautiful time. So I'm gonna challenge you to go and find your thin places. Where are the spots that you feel closer to God, that you feel closer to Spirit? Go and get to those places and spend as much time as you can. So we want to cut up about 1/4 cup of shallots, just really thinly sliced. So we're gonna start with a couple of tablespoons of olive oil. And to the oil, we wanna add our shallots. So once the shallots have started to get transparent, now we're gonna add our mushrooms. And this is a combination of mushrooms. This is shiitakes, oyster mushrooms, and baby bellas. You can use any combination of mushroom that you prefer, but this is what I like to use. Now we wanna cook this down until our mushrooms are nice and brown and they're a little bit reduced. Now we wanna add our seasoning, so add a little bit of salt and pepper. Now's the time that we're gonna get fancy. We're gonna deglaze the pan and add the champagne to make this a champagne sauce. Let this cook down a little bit and scrape the bottom of the pan so you get all of the really good brown bits up into your sauce. That's gonna be where the flavor is. To this, we wanna add the juice of half of a lemon. Now you wanna lower the heat just a little bit to a low to medium low, and we're gonna add our heavy cream. Now's the moment when you wanna give it a little bit of a taste and adjust your seasoning. So if you need to add more salt, if you need to add more pepper, go ahead and do that to your taste. Now remember, since we added the heavy cream, we don't wanna bring this to a boil, otherwise the sauce is gonna break. So we just wanna warm it through very, very slowly. So when you start to see the first bubble, that's when you know, give it a stir, take it off the heat, and it'll naturally thicken. Our last little step is just to add some brightness with some fresh, flat-leafed parsley. Go ahead and turn off the heat, and now let's get our crepes ready to go. So just like when we made our pancakes last week, we want to slightly oil the pan, but you don't want a lot of oil. So just take a little bit of a paper towel and lightly oil your hot pan. Now this is a crepe pan. It's especially made for making crepes, but you can use any flat pan. Just make sure that it is as flat as you can be. So pick out the flattest pan or pot that you have. Even a little bit of a griddle will work if you have that. You'll just have to control the size of the crepe. The beautiful thing about a crepe pan is that it already is in a circle and it kind of guides the crepe to do that. These go super fast, so usually about 60 seconds on one side, 60 seconds on the other, so don't leave them to sit. You're gonna have to move fast and cook them really quick. Don't forget to oil your pan between crepes. You can buy these crepe tools at any cooking supply store, and they really do make it easier for you to make these beautiful crepes. I'm not usually a fan of the unitasker things, but this is an investment that is absolutely worth your while. I always like to fold my crepes in thirds. That's sort of the traditional way to do it. Now we just want to combine them and get to eating these beautiful crepes with champagne sauce. Thanks for watching. You can find the full recipe in the description box below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel.